No one remembers why they built the dam. Not really. The official story is gone, buried in sealed government archives, misplaced in floods, fires, or bureaucracy. What people do remember is that the town of Blackwater Hollow was drowned, and with it, a past no one's eager to resurrect. When my cousin Jonah called me, his voice was a shredded whisper over the line. I got the sense something had clawed its way back up. "It's awake," he said. "I saw it. I saw the eye." Then he hung up. We hadn't spoken in years. Not since he moved out to the lake to get away from the noise. That's how he put it. We all assumed he meant the city, his ex, or the mess he made at the university. But now I'm wondering if the noise he ran from had always been the water. Blackwater Lake isn't on most maps. A jagged, man-made reservoir curled between folds of the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's a place people forget exists until they need to. The drive out took most of the day. 2-lane roads narrowed into gravel, and the trees grew thick, dark, too close. The air turned dense as I climbed, the clouds pressing lower, and somewhere along the way, my phone lost signal like the world was letting go. I reached the ranger station just before dusk. The lake shimmered beyond the trees, vast, glassy, and still. Not a single boat, not a single sound. Jonah didn't answer the door, but the lock had been busted. Inside was chaos, papers scattered, desk drawers yanked out, lights still on. His computer hummed. On the wall, a topographic map of the lake had been annotated with red thread and pushpins. Lines traced out sections of the shore like a web. Scribbles filled the margins. Above it all, scrawled in shaky block letters on a whiteboard, "Do not dive, it watches." Jonah's boots were still on the mat. His field pack leaned by the door. He hadn't been gone long. I found his notebook, leather-bound, damp from the humidity. Inside, erratic sketches, sonar graphs, strange symbols. The same image repeated again and again. An eye, round, slit-pupiled, vast, drawn obsessively, scratched into margins, bleeding through the paper. A groan rattled the window frame. Low, metallic, twisting. It came from the lake. The next morning, I met Alina. She was tall, blunt, and wore her ranger badge like it meant nothing. Her eyes scanned me like she'd already sized me up and found me lacking. "You're Jonah's cousin?" I nodded. "He's been off. Kept saying the lake was changing, talking about shapes, voices, shadows. Stopped coming into town." She led me to the dock, the lake stretching out like ink. "This place has always been wrong," she said. "Wrong how?" "Locals say it's cursed. The dam went up too fast. They didn't survey properly, just buried the old town. Caves, sinkholes, whatever was underneath. People say things were down there already." She looked at me. "Some say they weren't meant to be disturbed." That night, I stayed at Jonah's cabin. Sleep didn't come. The floorboards creaked too often. The wind didn't sound like wind. I watched the lake through the window, calm, moonlit, waiting. I stepped outside. Fog hung over the water, and the air had a taste to it, metallic, sour. Something rippled near the center, a slow, deliberate swell. I raised Jonah's camera and took a photo. The flash hit the surface just as an eye opened beneath it. Massive, slit-pupiled. It blinked once, then vanished. I ran inside and bolted the door. Alina showed up at dawn. "You saw it," she said. It wasn't a question. She brought a book, old, bound in rotting leather. The pages smelled of mildew and thyme, Appalachian dialect mixed with symbols I couldn't place. Her grandfather had written it. He'd been one of the last to leave Blackwater Hollow before the flood. They worshipped something in the caves, she said. Worshipped? They called it the sleeper beneath. Gave it blood. Animals. Then people. I stared at her. They believed it kept the lake calm, she said. When the dam went up, they thought it was buried, but it wasn't. She flipped to a page. A drawing. A coiled serpent thing with too many fins, too many teeth, wrapped around the ruins of a church. They weren't burying a superstition, she said. They were trapping it. We went out on the lake that afternoon. Alina brought sonar gear and Jonah's waterproof camera. The boat groaned as we reached the deepest point, almost 300 feet. The sonar pinged, then spiked. It's circling, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. A surge hit the boat. Something breached beneath us, dark, scaled, slick with oil. Then came the whispers. Not from Alina, not from me, from the water. Dozens of voices, speaking in no language I recognized, until one did. Jonah's voice. It's awake. It knows. Alina screamed. A shadow passed beneath us, larger than the boat, larger than belief. We paddled back in silence. That night, I played Jonah's recordings, static, water, then his voice. The town was built on bones. They sank it to hide the truth, but the truth doesn't drown. I turned. No one behind me, but on the cabin window, wet handprints, huge, webbed. Slowly sliding down the glass, Jonah hadn't returned. The whispers followed me, even in daylight. Fish floated belly up near the shore, birds vanished. And every night, the eye rose again, watching. Closer, I woke to screaming. It wasn't mine, but it could have been. I staggered to the window, heart pounding, breath sharp. Mist clung to the lake like gauze. No wind, no birdsong. But the echo of that scream clung to the air like blood on tile. I waited, listened. Nothing. When I stepped outside, the forest felt wrong, off kilter, as if something massive had shifted beneath the surface of reality. The trees leaned too far in. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was expectant. I found Alina waiting by the dock again. She hadn't slept either. They called it the hollowing, she said, without turning. The stories say it happens when the sleeper begins to stir. The land hollows out. People disappear, sometimes entire families. And no one remembers them, I said. It wasn't a question. She nodded. They're just gone. Like they never were. We needed answers, not stories, not sketches. So we went to the dive shop. It was barely still open. An old man named Greaves ran it out of a converted boathouse. His hands were stained with oil, and his eyes didn't blink enough. When we told him we wanted to rent gear for a deep dive into Blackwater Lake, he stared at us like we'd ordered arsenic for breakfast. You don't dive in the hollow, he said. We're not tourists, Alina told him. We're looking for someone, a scientist, my friend. He's already down there, Greaves muttered. If you go in after him, you'll never come back right. We got the gear anyway. Greaves handed over a waterproof light with shaking fingers. If you see stone under the lake, he said, carved stone, turn around. It means you've gone too far. The lake floor dropped fast, sloped down like a landslide into a black abyss. Visibility was crap. Alina led, kicking steadily, Flashlight sweeping across rock and silt and dark, waving plants that looked a little too much like fingers. At 70 feet, we saw the first structure. Not natural. A wall. Old brickwork covered in algae, rising out of the sediment like a scar. I brushed some away and saw a symbol carved into it. A circle with a vertical slit. The eye. We kept going. At 90 feet, a steeple appeared, broken in half. The remains of a church, cross still bolted to the top, now twisted sideways like it was trying to turn away. And then, something moved. A shape, a silhouette, not swimming, floating, watching. Jonah. I swam toward it. Alina grabbed my arm, but I broke free. The figure turned just as I reached it. Not Jonah. Eyes black, skin pale and stretched, mouth open, wider than it should have been. No tank, no bubbles, no breath. Just a whisper. Underwater. Join us. I woke on the dock, coughing water, shaking. Alina was bent over me, screaming something I couldn't hear. Everything rang. My limbs wouldn't respond. She finally slapped me. I blinked hard. What the hell happened? You blacked out. 40 meters down. You stopped moving. I had to drag you up. I remembered the eyes, the mouth, the voice. Alina handed me the GoPro. The footage was grainy, but we both saw it. The church, the brick wall, the figure. And behind it all, something moving in the dark. Coiled, massive. A single eye catching the camera flash just before it cut out. I threw up over the side of the dock. That night, we went through Jonah's files again. In one video, taken weeks before he disappeared, he's standing at the edge of the lake. The water's changing, he says. The structure's shifting. The sonar doesn't line up anymore. It's like the lake is alive, and it's moving things. He turns the camera to his face. He looks tired, pale. I think the dam wasn't meant to contain water, he says. It was meant to hold something in. Alina and I sat in silence for a long time. Then she pulled out a folded map, one her grandfather had kept hidden, a pre-flood layout of Blackwater Hollow. She pointed to a spot labeled the well mouth. That's where they made the offerings. And it's still under the lake. She nodded. That's where we go next. In the morning, Greaves was gone. Not just closed up, gone. The boathouse was empty. No equipment, no truck, no trace he'd ever existed. His name wasn't even in the town registry. But I remembered him. And so did Alina, which meant whatever was happening, it was speeding up. The wind picked up the next day. Not strong, just wrong. It moved against the treetops like fingers dragging across skin. The clouds didn't roll. They hung, static and swollen, like something pressing down from above. We packed early, 2 tanks each, backup masks, spare lights. Alina brought the map. I brought the camera. We didn't speak on the boat ride out. The lake didn't ripple. Not once. Not even as we passed into the center. According to the map, the well mouth was once part of the town square, a pit that opened into the caverns below long before the dam. The town elders built their church next to it, a place of communion, according to the notes. Now, it was somewhere below us, hundreds of feet down, waiting. Alina went first. I followed. Visibility dropped fast. At 60 feet, the water felt colder, heavier, like gravity changed. We passed the steeple again. Same sideways cross. Same algae-covered bricks. But something about it had changed. The door was open now. It wasn't last time. I motioned to Alina, but she kept going. At 90 feet, the ground dropped sharply, like the lip of a crater. Stonework lined the edges, carved, circular, ancient. Not brick, not concrete, something older. And at the center, a pit, 10 meters across, lined with teeth-shaped stone, descending into blackness, the well mouth. We hovered at the edge. Then the whispers began, not muffled like before, clear. A woman's voice, my mother's. Then Jonah. You don't belong here, he said, but you came anyway. My light flickered. Shapes moved along the pit walls, dozens of them. Not fish, not people. Something in between. Alina pointed, her light fixed on a stone altar, half buried in silt. Bones scattered around it. Too long, too thin. Not all human. Something brushed past my leg. I turned my light. Nothing. Then I saw him. Jonah, standing inside the well mouth, just beyond the light. No gear, no mask. Eyes open, unblinking. Mouth moving, too fast to follow. I kicked toward him. Alina grabbed my arm, yanked me back. Her regulator hissed. She shook her head hard. I blinked, and he was gone. The sonar screamed, spiked hard. Alina's voice came through the comms, static-laced. Something's coming up. Move. The pit pulsed. Not an earthquake, a breath. Silt exploded upward. Rocks shifted. The altar cracked. From the deep, something uncoiled. We didn't wait to see what. We kicked back, hard, lungs burning, the water pushing against us. Not current. Intent. Like the lake wanted to keep us. At 20 feet, Alina's mast cracked. I dragged her the last stretch. We burst through the surface, gasping. The boat was gone. We swam to shore, cold, shaking, half dragging ourselves through reeds. Alina looked different, paler, unfocused. You saw him too, I said. She nodded slowly. He said my name, she whispered. Only he called me what my grandfather used to. Little Lark. No one else knew that. She took out the book, flipped to a torn page. The sleeper reaches through water and blood. It speaks in voices that no longer live. That night I stared at the lake from the cabin window. No movement, no sound. Then ripples. Not from the center, from the shore. Something rising, slowly, deliberately. A massive shape broke the surface. Just the top of a head. Scaled, black, wet as the womb. And above it, suspended in moonlight, the eye closer than ever. And it was no longer watching me. It was waiting. The lake didn't sleep. Neither did I. Alina stayed curled on the couch, half conscious, mumbling in her sleep. Her skin looked wrong, not pale, bleached. Like the color was being leached out of her, like the water had gotten into her blood. I dug through Jonah's files again, trying to make sense of what was happening, looking for anything that might tell me what the hell was waiting beneath that lake. Then I found it, hidden under the floorboards, wrapped in plastic, bound in twine, taped shut. Jonah's journal. Entry 1. March 3rd. They lied to us. The dam wasn't about hydroelectric anything. I found original paperwork. They moved up construction by a year. Why? The hollow had a flood, but not a natural one. Something opened. One survivor said the caves were bleeding. Entry 2. March 17th. It's not just a legend. They called it the Sleeper, but that's not a name. It's a warning. It doesn't sleep. It waits. The original church wasn't Christian. The altar predates colonization. Native accounts describe the serpent who knows your name. They fed it memory. That's why people vanish. This thing doesn't just kill, it erases. Alina stirred. I shut the book. She looked at me with cracked lips and eyes too wide. You read it, didn't you? I nodded. She looked toward the window. Then it knows you now. We drove into town the next morning, what was left of it. Blackwater used to be a mining hub back before the dam. Now it was mostly boarded up diners, aging cabins, and a gas station that ran out of gas sometime last year. We asked around about Jonah. No one remembered him. Not the clerk, not the sheriff, not the old woman who swore she'd lived here since '54. He ever come into town for supplies? I asked. She blinked. Who? It wasn't just amnesia, it was removal. Jonah's presence had been cut out of reality like rot from fruit. But someone remembered something. A boy, maybe 16, approached us as we were leaving. You're the ones asking about the hollow? Alina nodded. You should talk to Father Sorrel. Who's that? I asked. The kid looked toward the hills. He's what's left of the church. Father Sorrel lived alone in a crumbling house outside the edge of town. The windows were painted black. The porch sagged. He answered the door with a shotgun in one hand and a Bible in the other. When I said Jonah's name, he hesitated, then let us in. Inside was a shrine, candles, bones, carvings, old strange symbols scratched into the floor. I was 10 when they flooded Blackwater Hollow, he said. My father was one of the last. He told me never to forget, so I didn't. He pointed to a photograph on the wall, a blurry, water-damaged group, 8 people in robes. One held a dagger, another held a rope. They believed if they stopped the offerings it would starve, but they were wrong. The dam didn't kill it. It just pissed it off. He looked at me. His eyes were fogged with cataracts, but locked onto mine with surprising clarity. If it marked you, he said, you don't have long. That night, back at the cabin, I listened to the rest of Jonah's final recording. Static, water. Then his voice, hoarse and calm. I went down to the well mouth. It showed me what it really is. It doesn't swim. It doesn't move. It dreams. And his dreams are real. If you're hearing this, you're next. A pause. Then whispering. Not from Jonah. From something else. And then one last line. Faint. Almost drowned in static. The first offering is made. I looked at Alina. She was gone. The front door was wide open, and across the floor, wet footprints, leading toward the lake. I followed the footprints, bare, wide, webbed. They trailed from the cabin to the shore, pressed deep into the mud like something heavier than Alina had walked there, or something that had worn her shape. The lake lapped gently, calm, too calm. The sky above was overcast, but the water reflected no clouds, just black, as if it had stopped pretending to be water at all. Alina, I called out. No answer. Then the ripples came, not out, like from a thrown rock, but in, as if the lake was drawing breath. A figure broke the surface 30 feet out. It was her, standing, still, half submerged, head tilted. Alina, I said, stepping into the water. Hey, it's okay. Come back. She didn't move. Alina. Then she spoke, but it wasn't her voice. The offering is accepted. The lake pulled at my ankles, gently, like a tide, but constant. I stumbled back, fell. By the time I got up, the figure was gone. I searched for hours, circled the entire shore, called her name until I couldn't speak. Nothing, not even footprints returning. It didn't take her. She walked in. I stayed up rereading Jonah's journal, trying to find something we missed. At the back, I found torn out pages taped together. They were different. Older handwriting, different ink. Translations, maybe. A passage stood out. One line was circled in red. The sleeper does not feed on blood. It feeds on history, memory, names. The moment it is seen, it begins to unwrite the seer. Another, in Jonah's own hand. I'm starting to forget Mum's face. That night, I dreamed I was underwater, not swimming, suspended. Below me, ruins, a sunken town, twisted buildings, broken lampposts, skeletal trees. I drifted down past the roof of a school, past a submerged playground, past the wreckage of a life erased. Then I saw the church, the well mouth gaping like a wound, and wrapped around it. It, not a serpent, not a fish, a coil of shifting matter, slick skin, endless fins, eyes embedded along its length, blinking in no rhythm, mouths that whispered without sound. It looked at me from every direction, and I understood something horrifying. It wasn't trapped in the lake. The lake is trapped in it. I woke to headlights. A black SUV pulled up outside the cabin. Two figures stepped out, one in uniform, the other in a dark coat, sunglasses, clipboard. He knocked once. I opened the door. "Mr. Keene?" he asked. "That depends who's asking." He flashed a badge. Government seal, Department of Energy, but the kind that doesn't do press conferences. "I need you to come with us." In the SUV, he slid a photo across the seat. Alina, standing by the lake, smiling. Weeks ago. She's been flagged as missing. You were the last one seen with her. I stared at the photo. "She walked into the lake," I said. "Something's in there." The agent's face didn't change. "We know." He handed me a file. Inside, satellite images, thermal scans, seismic data, and a phrase typed in all caps across every report: "Do not disturb substrate lifeform." "You knew?" I asked. The agent didn't blink. "We built the dam to buy time," he said. "Time's almost up." He leaned closer. "You have two choices, Mr. Keene. Go on. You can disappear quietly, like your cousin, like the girl." I waited. "Or you can help us make the second offering." They took me to a facility 3 miles inland, hidden in the hills. Concrete, no signage, half swallowed by trees. Inside, metal doors, humming lights, air too cold. The agent didn't speak, just motioned me into a room lined with screens. A woman was already there, mid-50s, grey hair, lab coat. Name tag read Dr. Callow. "You've seen it?" she asked. "Yes." "Then you understand. This isn't a myth." She clicked a remote. The screen lit up with sonar scans. Some I recognized. Jonah had similar ones in his notes. But these were deeper, older. "Seismic imaging places the core body mass at roughly 900 meters long," she said. "What you've seen is just the surface, a neural cluster." I stared. "You're saying it has a brain?" "No," she said. "We're saying it is a brain." The dam was built in 1967, but the documents showed planning began in 1948. Blackwater Hollow was chosen because of the caverns, she explained. The US Geological Survey found anomalous readings frequencies that interfered with radar. pulse rhythms matching no natural seismic pattern. They thought it was tectonic at first, the agent added, until the disappearances. 28 people, gone in 1 year, not missing, forgotten. No birth records, no family recall. They vanished from memory, Callow said, but the old families remembered, barely, enough to warn us. She handed me a worn page, photocopy of a journal entry. It does not eat flesh. It eats the past. It devours lineage. We made the first offering in 1902 to seal it beneath the hollow, but it grows restless when the blood stops. You're going to make another offering, the agent said. Of who? Callow didn't flinch. We need someone it already touched, someone marked Dot. Me, I said. No, she said. You're not the offering. You're the key. She slid a file across the table. Jonah's file. Candidate Alpha. Proximity exposure sustained. Mental alteration severe. Viability high. You brought him here, I asked. My stomach dropped. Callow nodded. He's not dead, not yet. They brought me underground, through a corridor that hummed like a hive. At the end, a door, heavy, reinforced. Behind the glass, strapped to a chair, Jonah, emaciated, skin pale, eyes black-rimmed but awake. He looked at me and smiled. Hey, cousin. I choked back everything. What did they do to you? Just gave me what the water wanted, he said. His voice wasn't right, too calm, like it had settled. You don't get it yet, do you? He said. It's not a monster. It's not a god. It's a mirror. A mirror of what? He leaned forward. Us. Alarms went off an hour later. Red lights strobed. Doors slammed shut. Through the intercom, static screams, then one clear word. Breached. I ran to the observation window. Jonah's cell was empty. The restraints hung open. The lights inside were flickering, then burst. Something wet slid across the glass from the inside. Back in the briefing room, Callow was gone. Most of the facility had been evacuated. The agent found me as I tried to escape. You want to live? He said. I nodded. Then you finish what Jonah started. He shoved a USB drive into my hand. Everything we know is on this, and the location. He looked me dead in the eye. If we don't contain this in a year, no one will remember North Carolina was ever here. The drive to the coordinates on the USB took 3 hours. West, into the mountains, deeper than I'd ever gone. The roads weren't on my GPS. My phone was blank. Halfway there, I realized something strange. I couldn't remember my mother's voice. I tried to picture her, could see her face, sort of, but her name felt off, slippery, like I was remembering someone else's memory. The lake wasn't just watching anymore. It was reaching. I reached the place marked on the file. Supposed to be a town called Grey Line. There was nothing there. No houses, no buildings. Just cracked pavement and weeds growing out of what used to be a main street. But as I walked, I saw signs, literal signs. Faded, rotting, half swallowed by dirt. Post office, Grey Line Diner, Town Hall. This had been a town, recently. But now it felt unwritten, like it had been edited out. I heard birds, but didn't see any. I heard wind, but the trees didn't move. And then I heard Jonah's voice. It wasn't nearby, it was below. I followed it through what had once been the town square. The ground cracked open ahead, like a sinkhole, but not. The break followed a perfect curve, a wide circle, familiar. I looked at the map again. The outline matched exactly. Another well mouth. And it wasn't the only one. The file on the USB included 6 more sites, all with the same ring-shaped voids, all near flooded or abandoned towns, all over the eastern seaboard. The lake wasn't unique, it was just the first. I set up camp in what was left of the Grey Line Library, just enough roof to keep the rain off. That night, the radio buzzed. I hadn't touched it, hadn't even powered it on, but it came to life anyway. "You hear me, cousin?" Jonah, but not from memory, not a hallucination. Live. They think it's contained. They think they can hide it, but the fault lines are spreading. The sleeper was never one thing. It's a network, a system. We're just the latest version. The radio cracked, then went silent. I dreamed again. Not underwater this time. Underground. Caves, wide as cathedrals, and in them, bones, towers of skulls, shapes crawling along the walls like spiders with too many limbs. At the center of it all, a well. From it, something rose. It wasn't monstrous, not in the way you'd think. It looked human, at first, tall, pale, slit eyes, mouth too small, too wide. It didn't move, it just watched and whispered, "You are the fault line." I woke up choking, my nose bleeding, my tent soaked in condensation, and outside, the air smelled like salt water. I drove to the next town on the list, then the next. Same thing, each one more forgotten, each one showing signs of collapse, not from erosion, from erasure. Buildings half there. People who used to live there with no digital footprint, no records, just silence where memory used to be. The sleeper wasn't eating the world, it was rewriting it. I followed the coordinates north into Pennsylvania, town called Ashfield, population 0. But I found clothes still drying on the lines, dishes in sinks, a bike rusting outside a corner store. Like everyone had just stepped out at the same time. There was no decay, just absence. That's when I found the replacement. It looked like a man, mostly, but it was wearing a sheriff's uniform with no name tag, and it was just standing inside the old church, in the pulpit, facing backward. Head tilted slightly like it was listening to something I couldn't hear. I said nothing, didn't move. Then it turned around. The uniform didn't fit right. Its limbs were too long, face wrong, skin too smooth, too tight, like it had been copied from memory, but not well. It smiled. "Do you remember me?" I didn't answer, because I almost did. For one terrifying second, I almost believed I knew him, like he had always been the sheriff of a town I'd never heard of, in a life I didn't live. Then he blinked, sideways, and the spell broke. I ran. Back to the car, back to the road, back to something that felt real. And that's when I found the girl. She was maybe 12, dirty, hiding behind an abandoned diner, holding a photo in her hands like a weapon. Alina. My breath caught. "Where did you get that?" She just stared at me, didn't speak, but she led me down a trail into the woods, to a stone ring half covered in moss. 10 people stood around it, hoods, candles, symbols carved into their skin. One of them stepped forward, a woman with an Appalachian accent thicker than pine bark. "We were the Watchers," she said, "before they built their dam, before they turned worship into war." I stared at the ring. You're the cult. She smiled. Number, they were the cult. We were the barrier. Inside a cave behind the ring, they showed me a map. Hand-painted, hundreds of years old. It showed rivers that no longer existed, mountains with different names, and 7 circles, one for each sub-site, each linked by red veins to a central point, a place beneath the hollow, deeper than the well-mouth. They called it the first core, not where the sleeper rests, where it was born. I spent the night there, too tired to run. At dawn, one of the watchers, an old man missing 3 fingers, pointed to my journal. You still remember, he said. That's good, but it won't last. What do I do? He didn't answer. He just handed me a coin. It was carved bone. On one side, the eye. On the other, my face. Not a likeness, my actual face. Every detail carved by hand. I looked up, but the watcher was gone. So was the cave. So were the rest of them. I stood alone in an empty field. And the photo the girl gave me? It was blank now. The coin led the way. When I held it in my palm, it warmed. Only when I was facing the right direction, north by northwest, through old woods that didn't show on maps, trees too thick, birds too quiet. I walked for hours, then days. I stopped needing food. I didn't notice that until later. On the 4th day, I reached the canyon. It wasn't marked. No fencing, no warning, just a massive split in the earth, as if something had burst from below and left the wound to fester. The edges were jagged, fresh, like it had happened recently, but the stone beneath was smooth, polished. I looked down, and I saw the door, not metal, not stone, flesh. A massive round iris set into the canyon floor, closed, veined, pulsing. The eye, it wasn't looking up, it was looking in. I climbed, roots, rock, air thick as molasses. As I neared the bottom, I heard whispers, not just in my head anymore, in my ears, tangible. He's coming home. The shape returns. He wore your skin once. Now wear his. My flashlight flickered. Then I saw Jonah. He sat at the edge of the iris, feet dangling off the side like a kid by a dock. He looked almost normal. Same face, same eyes. Until I blinked. Then his skin shifted, like water, like memory refusing to settle. A dozen versions of him flickered through. Young Jonah, older, broken, calm. One had no mouth, one had too many. But all of them spoke at once. It's beautiful, isn't it? What is? He smiled. His mouth didn't. The rewrite, no pain, no grief, no war. Just quiet, just forgetting. You let it take you. Number, I let it show me. He stood, and suddenly he was towering. Not in size, in presence, like I was looking up at a mountain in the shape of my cousin. You came for answers, he said. Here's one. You were never meant to survive the lake, but it let you, because you're a better vessel. Jonah held out his hand. You can end the noise. Join the rewrite. Help me finish it. The eye behind him opened. Massive, vertical, lit from within. From its center rose a shape. Bone and shadow, fin and tongue, ancient and fetal. It pulsed once, and I saw everything. Every offering, every erasure, every time a town vanished from the world and no one noticed. I saw my name crumble like ash. I saw myself vanish from memory. And I saw something else. A choice. The coin in my pocket had changed. It wasn't a coin now. It was a knife. Bone, curved, warm to the touch. Not for killing, for cutting away. Jonah stepped forward. What will it be, cousin? I held the blade of bone in my hand. It pulsed, like it was breathing, like it was waiting for me to move. Jonah didn't blink. You don't have to die, he said. Just let go. The past is pain. This is peace. I stared at him, at the eye behind him, still open, wide enough to swallow a cathedral. And I saw the truth. This wasn't a monster. It was a reset button. Not evil, just empty. A force meant to return the world to silence when the noise got too loud. And we were loud. I raised the blade. Jonah smiled. Good. Then I turned it toward myself and cut, but not where he expected. I didn't offer blood. I offered memory. My mother's name, my childhood home, the sound of my own voice. One by one, I gave them up, sliced them away, and fed them into the air, into the ground, into the open eye. The sleeper shuddered. It recoiled, not in pain, but in confusion. Because I wasn't becoming a vessel, I was becoming empty. The earth shook. Cracks spread from the eye outward. The iris closed fast and hard, crushing Jonah between lid and stone. He didn't scream. He just whispered, "Thank you." And then he was gone. The canyon began to collapse. I climbed, fast, breath gone, name forgotten, legs on instinct. As I reached the surface, I saw the sky split open, not with light, with static. I woke in a motel bed, mouth dry, head blank, no ID, no name, just a scar in the shape of a circle on my left wrist. The TV buzzed. Static, then news. Small town in North Carolina. A sudden landslide wiped out what geologists claim may have been an unrecorded fault line. No survivors reported. No name for the town. No map showed where it had been. I walked outside. Cars passed. People moved. No one looked at me. And I didn't remember them either. That night, I dreamed of water again. Still, cold, endless. A voice rose up from beneath it, not Jonah's. Mine. It sleeps again, for now. But the next time the world forgets itself, it will wake. If you're still here, maybe it's watching you now too. If this story got under your skin, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is just the start. Drop a comment below. Would you dive into Blackwater Lake? Would you search for Jonah or stay on the shore? New chapters drop weekly. And remember, don't look too long into the water. It might look back.